Hello and welcome, everyone. Good to see you joining. Right. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to just get started probably about 3 minutes after the top of the hour just to get everybody a chance to join in. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you in the chat where you're joining us from. And also, like, is there a piece of content, an email, something you've seen me share on LinkedIn, anything like that that's really resonated with you lately? So I'm always interested in how our content is landing with people. So we've got Cynthia. Welcome, Cynthia from Georgia. I hope you're doing okay down there. I know parts of Georgia were hit pretty bad in this recent storm. Denise from Houston. Welcome, welcome. Linda from Nashua, New Hampshire. Wesley, all the way from South Africa. Welcome. Heather from Tampa Bay. I also hope you're doing well. I know Tampa Bay got some really big storm surge, so good to see you here. Right. I've been getting a lot of questions if we're okay here in North Carolina. We are on the east side of North Carolina. So there's obviously huge devastation in the western side of North Carolina, including many places I've visited and feel very connected to or have friends in. But personally, we are totally fine. And I'm really grateful for that. Naveen in Tennessee. Welcome, Naveen. Thank you for letting me know, Alina. Can you also see the slides? That would be great to know as well from Ottawa, Canada. All right, we officially have 3 countries and like 7 or 8 states represented. So always a great virtual audience that we have here. Nigeria, so 4 countries. Welcome. All right, we're just giving it a couple minutes here for people to get connected. We had about 90 some people, I think, registered for today. So I figure at least a few more people will join. So if you're joining us, the goal of this session is to give you a behind the scenes look at the Business Analyst Blueprint program. So if you have been thinking of joining us, but kind of just like not quite sure, or just kind of happened to see this and wondered what the program is all about, this is the perfect place to be. So thank you, Elena, for letting me know. All right. So let's go. I always feel like it's such a fast couple of minutes, but it's still 2:02. So we'll keep it till 2:03. So I did ask as people were joining, but you might not have been here when I asked, is there a piece of content, like an email you've gotten from me, or maybe something you've seen me share on LinkedIn that has resonated with you lately? I always like to hear what's resonating. Or is there a topic that you would like to see me cover that you're like, why is Laura not talking about that? And sorry if you just saw something swipe on the page. I'm just kind of getting a few things organized. All right. Cynthia says business analyst certification. Awesome. What are your questions around that, Cynthia? It's great to know. Okay. All right. It is now officially 2:03. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm sure other people will join us as they are. So how long it takes. Okay. So we can talk about that a little bit during the Q&A. And I'm assuming you're talking about maybe the CBAP certification and how that fits. Linda says, as a technical writer, much of what you do resonates with my activity and my job. Yes, we're going to talk about the difference between roles and skills a little bit today as well. So as we're diving in here, and definitely please, ask questions in the chat and continue to interact in the chat. I love to kind of see how things are landing and hear what questions you have. I will use that to adjust how much time we spend on various things. But just a few ground rules to get you started. Do please keep yourself on mute unless I ask you to elaborate on your question, or during the Q&A, there'll be an opportunity to use that raise hand function. If you do want to ask a question verbally, that would be totally fine as well. But while we're in the presentation mode, just keep yourself on mute so we can have a great recording and also just not have the sound distraction. Please post questions in the public chat or use that to connect with other people as well. Preferably not private chats to me. It just allows everybody to see what is happening in the chat, and kind of then I'm not answering something out of thin air that everybody's like, what is she talking? What is she speaking to? Right? Is this the real thing? So it's just really helpful if everybody can see and be on the same page about the conversation. And finally, especially this will be important if we get to have a bit of a robust chat, but try to just post your question once. And then at the end, if I feel like I haven't caught up, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything, I might call and ask you to repost your question if I haven't addressed it. And just a few housekeeping notes. This is being recorded. A recording will be shared publicly, and we'll send it out within the next day or two. And we're going to try to keep this session to about 60 minutes. I'm anticipating probably another 25-ish minutes of me talking through the skills and the program details and doing a demo of the online website. And then we'll have at least 20 to 30 minutes for your Q&A at the end as well. So just kind of a heads up on how the time will unfold. So just a little bit about me. Is this anyone's like first live event with me? I'd love to know. A lot of times people will kind of, lurk on a few different things. I've been doing webinars and LinkedIn Lives and kind of different podcasts and speaking with IIBA, right? But sometimes it is actually somebody's first time. I see a lot of yeses. So it's not unreal or it is relevant for me to do a little bit of an intro and let you know a little bit about me. So I would consider myself a career business analyst. I started my business analysis career over 2 decades ago. And I am also, I feel like, a tried and true business analyst trader. So I founded Bridging the Gap back in 2008. We just celebrated our 16-year anniversary. That was when I published the very first blog post on Bridging the Gap, long before it became the training company that it is today. I was originally starting a consulting and contracting practice and looking to build that out. And what people kept asking me for is, how do I build my skills? How do I get started as a business analyst? How do I kind of do all these things in business analysis? And so over time, what was a blog to support a consulting practice became a training company of Bridging the Gap that we have today. So I am the author of How to Start a Business Analyst Career, which is a great guidebook if you are looking to get into business analysis or feel like you are not yet a business analyst and really want to become official as a business analyst. This is much more of a career strategy, career roadmap type of book. What we're talking about today in the Business Analyst Blueprint program are like the skill development aspects of being a business analyst or being more successful as a business analyst, or really what people often say is like being a polished business analyst. And I'm the creator of the Business Analyst Blueprint training program. So it's content that I've created over the last 16 years, delivered in multiple different ways, multiple different formats, kind of tweaked and adjusted. And I'm really excited about the current version and the current delivery mode of the program that allows people to start when it works for them. It has allowed me to get into the teaching and the instructor support, which we'll talk about a little bit. One thing I also just wanted to encourage anybody on the call, I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. And I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn if you are not already. And also, I would encourage you to share your LinkedIn profile if you're open to connecting with other people who are on today. I really do believe in the power of community and making connections. The fact that you're all here is a connection point. And so if you're open to connecting with other people, feel free to share your LinkedIn in the chat. And then also I'm going to share a link to our YouTube channel, which is another great way. Like all of our blog videos are up on our blog, but sometimes YouTube is a great way to subscribe and get notifications of new videos as well. So those are 2 great ways to keep in touch with us, be above and beyond the email list, how you might have heard about this particular event today. Okay. So one thing I do want to know about, or you to know about our training, is that we do focus on foundational transferable skills in business analysis. So you do not have to have the title of BA. We already had somebody mention they're a technical writer, right? And most of our participants and those in our community members don't have the title of business analyst. because there are so many ways to leverage the BA skill set, and there's immense value in investing in the skill set. Because you can take it with you in so many different roles. You can use it to build a true business analysis career, but we also have participants who are now leading teams, who are getting into business architecture, who have moved into product or project management roles. Some have moved into more technically focused roles. Some are building excellent careers within the business analysis skill set as well. So there's a lot of ways to leverage a skill set. I really think of it as a skill set you can take with you anywhere in your career. And so that's what we teach, is those skills that really are transferable and foundational and that are relevant in a lot of different roles. So our agenda today is to first look at accelerating your career. What are the key business analysis skills that unlock new career opportunities? Then we're going to go through the full program details and how we specifically combined flexible real world training with on the job coaching to help you up level your skill set. And then there will be time for you to ask me your questions about the program, as well as how we can help you achieve your career goals. And as I mentioned, for those of you who are just joining, I mentioned this at the beginning. If you have any, or actually, I don't think I did mention it. I think I glossed over it. I intended to mention it, so I will speak to it now. I do want to make sure in the Q&A we can answer any questions people have about the program specifically, but selfishly, I would also like to address a few project-specific questions. So I'd love to hear, like, what's coming up for you now? What are the issues that you're facing with your stakeholders or your deliverables or your teams? Feel free to ask a few of those questions. I can't promise that we'll address them all, but I will do my best to address both the the questions about the program and a few questions about those real world challenges you're facing as well. It's the kind of question I love to answer. All right. All right. So when we're talking about new opportunities, what might that look like? So Tammy was part of the Business Analyst Blueprint program. And when she joined the program, she already had 20 years of experience within business analysis, specifically as an SAP business analyst. So that's a specialized business application. But she was having difficulty landing a new SAP role because her awareness, like, she had great SAP expertise, but her BA awareness was limited. So she got stuck when people would ask her questions about elicitation and discovery and requirements analysis in interviews. She felt like she wasn't kind of getting to the kind of answers that they were looking for. So she joined the Business Analyst Blueprint. She posted her accomplishment on LinkedIn. First, she worked through the program, right? She did the work, she learned the skills, she applied the skills on the job. She posted that accomplishment to LinkedIn, and she was actually contacted about a new BA position in a new industry. So she ended up moving from the steel foundry industry to a pharmaceutical company, and also got a 20% salary increase as she did that. Right. And so it was a huge opportunity. And she attributed it back to the program because she could really succeed in the interview and use the right terminology and speak about her experience in a lot more depth. And that was a skill set that she learned in the program. So really being able to couple her SAP experience along with the tried and true business analysis techniques that we're going to talk about today, to really get stakeholders on the same page, to solve problems, to analyze opportunities. Like, she was doing all that before, but she didn't know how to speak to that work in a BA focused way. And she was also able to bring another layer of credibility and structure to her skill set. So that is kind of, when we're talking about how do we unlock opportunities, that's just a great example of how that can happen. So I wanted to share that with you. So what are these skills? So this is our visual model of the Business Analyst Blueprint framework, the skills that we cover in the program, but also the essential skills, the foundational skills that I think every BA really needs to have to be successful. So first, I just want to talk about the organization. So along kind of the white section at the top, there's 3 vertical sections. There's the business level, the software level, the information level, and then along the bottom is the business analysis process framework. So we have 4 modules in the program, and each one of them covers one of those vertical areas or that framework. Right? So we have 4 modules to cover all 4 of those areas. And the business, the piece at the top are really the techniques. the tools, the techniques, sort of like the hammer and the screwdriver that you would expect somebody showing up your house to fix something to have, right? Those are the techniques that you need, the way you analyze requirements, the way you communicate with stakeholders. The framework is how to approach a project from beginning to end. And the techniques fit into that framework. You kind of pull out the right technique for the right kind of project and use it at the right time. And the program walks you through how to do that. So let's just kind of talk through some of these skill sets specifically. In the business level, we're looking at how to analyze a process, how to improve a process, and also how to communicate or discover what that process is with stakeholders. So the other part of that first level on the top is that we split between analysis techniques, or like the kind of hands-on keyboard ways that we documents we create or ways we think through a domain, and the communication techniques, because everything we do as a BA is stakeholder dependent. We're always working with other people to understand what they want, how it fits together, fill in gaps in communication and understanding, right? So we need to have both. We can't just work on the documentation part and not the communication part, and we can't just work on the communication part without the analytical documentation part. So when we talk about business process analysis, we're looking at how do we analyze and improve an end-to-end process? How do you ensure you're solving the right problem? How do you ensure technology that you build actually supports the business, right? And how do you discover what that process is by working with business stakeholders? And there's many techniques for doing that. At the software level, we're taking that business process and we're looking at how does a software system support the business user in that process? What piece does the software do? How does the user interact with that system? Or what part of that is actually automated in a system? So this is the crux of where we take a high level understanding of the business and put it into here's what the software needs to do to enable the business to achieve their objectives. And the way we teach, the techniques we teach here are use cases, which is a textual document that really encourages great analytical thinking about getting really specific about those software requirements without being technical. I do want to, it's not about how do you code. It's not about how do you build the technology. It's about functionally what does the software need to do, as well as wireframes, which are a visual model of what a screen might look like. And then how do we actually interact with stakeholders to confirm that this is what they really want, or this is not what they want, and we need to go back and iterate through the process a little bit more. Then the third set of techniques is the information level, and we call this data modeling. So here, there's a lot of techniques that help us understand how the business organizes information. So this is essential for system integration and migration projects, as well as any type of reporting project, as well as even a simple project where you're just adding a field to a screen, right? That field has to go somewhere, and that's part of the data. And again, we're thinking in business terms, so like a glossary or how you would communicate with the business or what the business uses as terminology is equally important. Then finally, we have the BA Essentials Masterclass. So this is the fourth module, and it gives you that step-by-step approach to manage your end-to-end project as a BA. So this is really like a capstone module where you take all those techniques together and put it into an end-to-end approach that gives you credibility, all the way from you're assigned a new ambiguous project, like please go work on XYZ, to what's my role on that project, who are the stakeholders I need to be involved, what are the business objectives, why are we investing in this project, what is the scope, what are we actually going to implement in terms of a solution, what is my plan for executing on the requirements, who do I need involved in that plan, in that process, what stakeholders need to be involved when, how to then actually going through and actually detailing out and analyzing, discovering, analyzing, validating the details of all the different requirements aspects that you might need to do, and then switching to a more supportive role of supporting both the implementation and the business team to ensure that all the requirements flow through to the end conclusion and actually get implemented the way that you would expect. So we're really achieving ROI, and then finally measuring the ROI. So that framework covers that whole end-to-end process. So these skills are really transferable in a wide range of roles. There's so many different types of projects, and they're all essential and they all really fit together as well. And you might notice there's really nothing trendy about these skill sets, right? They're foundational. They will be skills that you could take with you as you change companies, as you shift industries, even as you shift roles. We've had people in so many different roles and industries invest in this skill set and really be able to take it with them in multiple different job opportunities. So I just want to pause for any questions here related to the skill sets that we cover in the program and the skill sets that you need as a business analyst. And I saw one that was kind of related to this. I'm just going to scroll up. I think it was about product management. So Naveen asked, if we are good in BA program, how much percent further do we need to go to become a product manager? So the first thing to realize, those titles are used in a lot of different ways, right? So some product managers are really business analysts because they're focused on the software piece that we just talked about. Sometimes those are very different roles in a company. What I see is kind of often the differentiator between a business analyst and a product manager is a business analyst tends to facilitate the discovery of the business process and really collaborate with stakeholders about what they want out of a technology solution and ensures that it fits in with them. A product manager often has more ownership in what those requirements are. So instead of kind of going and talking to a bunch of people in the business, the product manager might be talk to a bunch of customers, potential customers about their needs, and then make a decision. We need this feature, right? And I am going to stand behind the fact that this feature is going to help us improve in this way and make a case for that and own that. And then they might work through a similar process as this to get that feature implemented, or they might partner with other people on a technology team as part of this work. So often it's like you learn these skills because it gives you how to collaborate with a technology team. It helps you understand technology in a deeper way without being a technical kind of developer type person. And then you kind of that next level of leadership and ownership comes as you move into a product manager role. Great question, Naveen. Are use cases the same as user stories? So they are separate techniques. I put user stories as a communication technique because a user story is that intersection point where a business analyst works with a software development team that is working in an agile way. So user stories tend to be more specific and more concrete. And what happens is you lose the big picture context. So a use case often will look at a bigger picture set of functionality and helps you think through all the requirements and interrelationships and kind of how things will flow in multiple different ways. It's a better analytical thinking tool than a user story. And then you will take that use case and break it apart into user stories. Not everybody who writes user stories actually writes use cases, but what I find when I talk to them is they are thinking in use cases. So the best way to learn to think in use cases, or the only way that I've learned to teach people how to think in use cases, is to write some use cases. And then if you can truly embed that thinking process into your mindset, you often can go right to user stories. Okay. Question on data mapping and entity relationship diagram. If you aren't a strong technical analyst. Thank you for bringing this up, Heather. So these are not, we teach these in a business focused way. So you might have seen an ERD that is like a spider web that is basically the physical data model, right? We teach them top down. So you're starting with even just 5 to 10 concepts of what are the key business concepts and how do they relate to one another. And so it's called a conceptual or a logical data model that we teach the entity relationship diagramming structure as a way to capture. And the same thing with data mapping. You might not be doing all the granular data mapping, but there's some really important business information about how, when you're translating between systems, about what field really maps to what field, what actually fits. Are the business processes around those fields the same? A technical person who doesn't know the business might just be like, oh, customer is customer, like that must map, right? And make some assumptions. But you as the BA might know that wow, the way that we're using customer in this legacy system is really an account in this new system. And so we need to take care to make that mapping so it's meaningful to the business. Naveen, is product manager and product owner the same? Typically, there are slightly different roles. So product owner is a role on an agile software development team. You might have product owners and product managers. Sometimes they are overlapping as well. So there's a whole conversation we could have about roles, but what is essential is these skills I feel like are fundamental for success in both of those roles. Uh, and they will help you cultivate that kind of skill set. Okay, so we haven't gotten a lot of questions around this yet, but we often get questions about how can you apply this training if you're not yet in a business analyst role? And we've had a lot of people in that situation. So I love to share Zainab's story. We have several people who've been through our program and who later moved into business analyst roles. But Zainab was in a 13-year career in underwriting when she joined the Business Analyst Blueprint. So she had deep underwriting experience, very little exposure to BA, and was really fighting to even be the SME or subject matter expert on a project. She now works as a transformation manager doing business analysis on a multilingual team. I also just really love that English is not her just her second, but third language. As somebody who doesn't have a second language, that's just mind-boggling to me. And so she took a program in her non-native language and was able to apply it so effectively. Her first step during the program was to ask for just 20% of her time to be spent doing business analysis activities. And she continued to make her career goals clear, to ask for new opportunities, to volunteer for different tasks, and finally was able to really connect with a project manager who saw the potential that she had, the training that she had, the skill set that she had, and made a case for her to join in this new role of transformation manager. And it was a 2-year process of doing that, of learning the skills, and applying the skills, of continuing to push forward within her career. But now she's reviewing process models that were created by others and finding gaps because of the skill set that she developed. So that's really the power that can come from building that official skill set, and can really support you in many different ways. I also like to highlight that Zainab made that investment in herself. And I always love it when employers make investments in their employees and choose to fund the training for them. We have lots and lots and lots of people who make this investment in themselves because they see it as an investment in their career. It's also not uncommon for somebody to make the investment in themselves and then have their employer cover the tuition, because they gain the confidence in the first few modules usually about how much value they're creating for their employer, and their employer also sees the difference and is able to see that value. So there's lots of different ways that financial piece comes into effect. Okay, so what kinds of skills can this help you on? What kinds of skills can you use these projects on? And I would love to hear in the chat, what types of projects are you working on, so that I can speak to those as well and how these skills may or may not apply to those. So one big type of project that often comes up is when you're implementing a new system or migrating from one system to another. When you do that, you might be thinking mostly about the software requirements. What does that system do? It might be a pre-built system. So you're like, we don't actually even need to do software requirements, right? Because it's already built for us. Often that's not the case. Often you still need to configure that system. But what you really need to do first is figure out the business process. How does the business work today? How does that business process flow into the new system? All too often, we just like throw systems into business users and expect them to figure out how to use it to get their job done. We might throw their data into without really taking care to map it. We've talked a lot about data mapping already. And just say, okay, go use it. It's all there. And really nobody's done the work to look at their business processes and how they can work within the new system, as well as that data mapping type of work to make sure the data is in the right places. So that's one kind of project. Another type of project would be a data warehouse. So data focus is obviously huge. All of those data modeling techniques are relevant, But it's equally important to understand what the data means, which requires looking at the business process and how the software is used to collect data to make sure we're combining, the same pieces of data or deduplicating things appropriately, and that the data actually means what the business wants it to mean. Which is a great segue into reporting projects. We actually have a team of BAs who go through our programs as part of their onboarding, and they are BI analysts, business intelligence analysts, focused on building new reports. So before they build that report, though, what their manager coaches them on is making sure they understand the person who's requesting that report, what their process is. So what the process is, what decision they need to make, or why they need that report to support their process. So they have to understand that process and then wireframe out some potential reports that will support their process, and then make sure they have the right data to actually support the decisions in the process. And then they build the report, right? So like, I feel like that's just such a, you think of a report as like, oh, we just need to figure what fields we need to put at the on the page. But really looking at that big picture is going to help ensure the report actually supports the business user and just doesn't, gather dust, digital dust. And then finally, those are kind of bigger types of projects. BA is also incredibly important when you're working on enhancements to existing systems. So what can seem like a small request, like we talked about adding a field to a page, is really part of a larger business process. It impacts the software, it impacts the database. It might need to be included in a report. It might have some logic around it. It might only be collected at certain times, right? A new field is rarely just a new field. And this holds true with most seemingly simple enhancement requests. You might not spend months doing the analysis, but you could pick and choose from these techniques to do better analysis and make sure that body of work actually solves the business problem right up front. All right, and let me see, we had a couple things come in from the chat. So Cynthia says, I'm working on a lift and shift project, replacing legacy coding technology with modern coding technology, but the system should function the same. That's really interesting. So yes, any legacy system you definitely would be looking at, the system software functionality. But I would challenge that you just want to replace the exact same functionality that you have today. That's a bit of limited thinking from maybe not your perspective, but from a business perspective. Because anytime we're making an investment in updating code bases, we can also be bringing in new technologies. We can be enhancing how we support the business. We could be automating things that today are manual processes. And there's always opportunities to get more value from that system as well. So by understanding the business process around that technology, like how the business users are using it, you could also really suggest, like, maybe there's certain code that doesn't even need to be used or built because it's not used. And maybe there's some opportunities with the new coding technology that would enable, like, save a lot of time or add a lot of value to your business users. So it's really an opportunity to look a little bit more broadly very often. Anthony says, I'm working on setting up a digital bank for a group company. I might need to break out and set it up myself because they have not been forthcoming with all the ideas I have done in the past 2 years. I have 15 years of experience in banking. Yeah, so that is a really exciting project. So a digital banking, imagine there's some sort of app there, right? So you're looking at what is the software going to do, but again, you also want to be looking at how does this fit within the business process when you're implementing the digital piece. So, the fact that people haven't been super forthcoming, that often speaks to the framework that we talk about at the bottom of, and I'm just going to kind of skip forward to this so we can look at the framework again. So that first step of, like, what are the business objectives, right? Why are we exploring this digital bank? Why is it important? What are the business outcomes we're looking to achieve? What's the first aspect of scope? And so having those conversations can often help break you out of that challenge of people aren't really forthcoming for ideas. They might not understand, like, why this project is important and what potential it has for the company. Okay. So again, the program covers all of these skill sets. So we have 4 modules in the program. They cover all of these skill sets. You leave with both a toolbox and a framework that you can use on a lot of different kinds of projects. So I want to switch now to program structure, and I'm looking at the time and realizing I totally underestimated how much time I had, but I also feel like we've been having some great questions in the chat, so appreciating the interaction around that as well. Okay. And we will still have a bit of time for Q&A at the end, and I like having the questions along the way, so thank you so much for that. Okay, so let's first talk about what this program is not, because I get these questions quite often. When I started to conceptualize the type of training that I was going to offer, probably 15 or so years ago, there were really 2 types of training on the market. And the first was certification prep courses, where you learned, you went through the body of knowledge for IIBA or PMI, and you learned how to pass an exam. And that was the focus of the course. And a lot of kind of byproducts and side benefits came out of that process, but the primary focus was to prepare and pass the exam. And the second were these jam-packed 3 to 5 day, sometimes 1 to 2 day, but in-person training programs, either conducted in-house for employees of a specific company, or you had to travel to where there was a public session. Right. Of course, since 2020, a lot has changed, and most training companies are now offering those programs online. But a lot of companies have kind of taken their in-person programs and put them online. Bridging the gap, we've always offered our training online and virtually. I've, in isolated times, like customized it or tweaked it to offer it in person, right? But it was built to be offered online in the first place before it was the necessary thing to do. And they were also designed to take advantage of the online environment, specifically the asynchronous nature. Enable, because there's no travel, because we're not in person, because it's virtual, we can spread the training out over time, and we can support our participants as they are doing real world work in their projects, versus kind of trying to dump a bunch of information and hope that they can go apply it when they get back home. Because those trainings really did leave some essential gaps, right? There's a difference between being able to answer an exam question and the practical know-how you need to use that skill in the real world. And also the intensive learning, like it's a great way to consume a lot of information, to get really inspired, to make a lot of connections. And it can all make sense in the classroom when you're working with these case studies and theoretical examples. And then you get back to your day job and you have to actually apply it, right? And maybe also you're getting stakeholder resistance of like, that's not how we do things here. I don't know what a use case is, or why are we working on that process map? We're really just concerned about the software. And so you're really like, I've been in a lot of those training programs, and then like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, how do I incorporate it into my day-to-day work? So our training at Bridging the Gap has taken a lot of different forms, but it's always been based on the premise of when you build real world experience, 2 things happen. One, you build the true skills and competencies that you can take with you and use in the real world. And then 2, you accelerate your momentum because you've put those techniques in place on the job, and you start to get noticed for more career opportunities. Okay, so what does it actually look like? Thank you, Anthony, for the smiley angel voice or angel emoji. All right. So we include 4 elements in our training. The first is the on-demand training. It's all available online. This is where you learn the industry standard knowledge, the techniques. This part of the program is very flexible. You go through the course materials when it works for you. We give you access to all of the content up front, and they're all available on our course platform. And it's not stuff full with theory. It's very practical, focused on business analysis techniques, right? A lot of programs kind of start and stop here. For us, it's really just the first step. The second is that you have time to apply what you are learning in your real world work. So with instructor support along the way. And that's how you turn your learning into action. So go and create a process map, go and write a use case, go and create an ERD. And then submit it for deliverable reviews. So inside our forums, you have the opportunity to submit BA deliverables from your real world work, and you would receive feedback on how to improve it. both from me and sometimes also the community of professionals. So this means you get to learn from each other's examples too and see what other people are doing in their career. And when you take advantage of that layer of support, you have the potential to leave the program with a vetted collection of work samples that you can show to a potential employer. You can use as ammunition to get a promotion. You can just be able to showcase that you actually have these skills. And then beyond just the deliverables inside the program, you're welcome to ask your questions about your projects and how to address common challenges or to work through something that's just not sticking. And we have both the online forums for that as well as our monthly office hours calls. So the goal is for you to have all the support you need to apply those skills, learn those skills, apply them on the job, and then work through any challenges that you face along the way. So your program investment includes all of the online access and the instructor support from the 6 months from the day you join. And I just want to share this story from Chad of like, what does this really look like? Like, what really changes? And Chad participated in the program earlier this year, this version of the program that we're offering today. And he talked about like, prior to doing this, I would have sort of bounced around from requirement to requirement. I love this until somebody said, hey, I need some deliverables. And then I would have worked the whole weekend trying to put something together. Instead, now I'm keeping myself on task. I'm building a template of what my document needs to look like for my company, and it's a completely different way to do my job. So this is what it looks like to shift from a reactive kind of, attending a bunch of meetings and kind of putting some stuff together, like that mode, to proactive. It's what it means to have a structured approach of how you tackle a project and move it through a framework. It's about being strategic in your work and thinking ahead and always being focused on the next possible decision, the next possible thing. And I often get asked, like, what are employers looking for these days? And I see them looking for BAs who bring a structure and a toolkit, right? Who are thinking ahead, who are creating project momentum, who are helping the business make decisions, who are not just kind of going to a bunch of meetings and asking some questions and then scrambling to figure out like how to put it all together at the last minute, but who are leading people through a process and who know what it takes to be successful as a business analyst. So that's the value in this particular skill set. Okay. So what is included in the online training piece? I'm going to go through this quickly because I think like a lot of this you would have expected, but we have videos, we have audio files, we have very high quality transcripts that people often use and refer back to as a reference. We have templates and work samples so that you are have an asset to use. So it might be a swipe file. If it's a business process map, we have a template for our business process, right? We've got whatever tool that we can give you to make it easier to apply what you just learned is part of what's included in the training materials. For meetings, we even have sample meeting agendas and talking points so that you know how to open that kind of meeting. And Vasco, to your point, when you do complete the program, go through all of the course materials, you do earn a certificate of completion that's valid for 36 PDs or CDUs. And so if you're planning to get certified with IIBA, you'll have the professional development requirements met. And this program would be transferable to any organization. We have actually quite a few participants in the UK currently inside the program. So I think it is definitely being transferred into the UK. Okay, in terms of the practical support, what's included is we have monthly office hours calls. This is where you can raise your questions or even share something that you'd like some feedback on. These are currently on the second Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we cover all kinds of topics on those calls. And then in between office hours, you can post your questions in our online forums, and you can also submit your work samples for review. So if you want my personal feedback on something that we cover in the course, like a business process or a use case or your plan or your scope document, this is the place where you can get that. And this is what Anna had to say about the support. And I will just quickly say that, she was part of our program for nearly a year. And what was wonderful about watching Anna is she graduating from being the one who was always asking like all the questions to being the one who was supporting other business analysts and really felt herself also being challenged and supported in that, right? And learning from the feedback she gave as much as from the feedback that she received. We do have a few bonuses. So there's several strategic career workshops. These are shorter, really bite-sized workshops to help you accelerate your BA career and improve your practice. You get access to all of the office hours recordings. We've covered a ton of different topics, from bouncing back from a canceled project to scope creep to beating prep to data projects, job search, and a whole lot more. And then the other really cool bonus is that I've recorded 3 live workshops this year where we've done a deep dive on each, and one of them has been one skill that we cover in the blueprint. And so you get the recordings of those where you get to see extra examples from the community and then hear the feedback I had for the live participants. It's also like a structured work time. We spend the first 45 minutes to an hour walking you through creating a deliverable. So it can be like, gosh, I need to create a use case today and I'm kind of stuck on it. So go listen to the workshop and use that workshop as a way to work through it. And then you can upload your samples in our forums and get feedback directly from me. Okay. Final, this would be a great time to get any other questions you have in about the program, as well as any project specific questions. We've had a few of those already, and I'm kind of excited to answer those as well. And I want to just leave you with this comment from Dominic, which was, my main takeaway was that business analysis is a much more detailed and in-depth process than I originally thought, right? There's so much kind of, I think, assumption that like anybody can be a BA, or it's just a matter of like writing some stuff down and asking some questions, which on the surface is true, but behind the scenes, great BAs know these analytical tools and are able to think in these analytical tools, which is what allows them to make it look so easy, right? And what he says is all about creating clarity where there's ambiguity. This is essential when trying to bring about change that delivers value to an organization. The aspect of the program, excuse me, that I found most valuable was the hands-on learning aspect of the techniques that were used to support each stage of the process. And by using the techniques in real world scenarios, it made a huge difference in providing context on what to use and when to use it. All right. And then if this is not a good fit, I just want to let you know that we do have a few other options. So we have our BA Essentials Masterclass. It's the only module that we sell on demand as a self-study course. So it does not come with any instructor support, but you can get the learning materials. And you also, when you join the BA Essentials Masterclass, you get a $500 discount on the blueprint. So it's a great way to get started if you're kind of looking for that getting started element. We also have templates, 5 different template collections that are great tools to just kind of give you that quick start and to give you some guidance. They're individually, each toolkit is $97, and then you can get them all together for $347. So that's a great savings. There's also a toolkit we have called the Effective Conversations Template Collection. This is a great place for communication challenges, or just sort of like if you get nervous handling those challenging situations. And this, what sets this one apart is it has kind of talking points, but it also has short videos of like how to actually say the words, right? And how to do that. I also do offer, it's not listed here, but I do selectively offer private training and work with business analysis teams to create a private cohort or a custom option. That could be a workshop around one technique. It could be around one module of the program. It could be around the whole program. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out so we can talk about what that might look like. All right, and that brings us to our live Q&A. And I do just want to let you know, this is super advanced notice, but we are shifting our prices as we go through into 2025. So December 13th, that's a Friday, lucky Friday the 13th, is the last day to get our 2024 pricing. And so you can save $500 when you register today or anytime in the next 2.5 months. All right, so I would love to take your questions. And I'm going to go ahead and just share this link in the chat. So everybody has it if they want to learn more. Lots of different information on that page as well. All right. And I am stop sharing so that I can kind of see what everybody's doing here and kind of expand the chat. Okay. So Naveen asked, what is the duration and the fees? So the investment in the course is $2,497 USD. And with that investment, you get 6 months of online access to all the content and the community. And if you decide you want to stay on longer, we do offer a much more affordable, kind of lower price way to continue to access all that instructor support on a monthly or annual basis. Nanette, is there a discount code for the 500? If you have purchased the BA Essentials Masterclass previously, you should have access to it in an email or your platform somewhere. But if you don't have that, just email us at info@bridgingthegap. I'm going to type that in because there is hyphens. And we would be happy to just confirm your participation in the BA Essentials Masterclass and get you that discount code. Okay. No, there's not a discount code for the Blueprint class other than if you have already purchased the BA Essentials Masterclass. No. Okay. But the current pricing on the website is still our 2024 pricing. So it does reflect that $500 discount. It's not really a discount. It will be going up to $2,997 after the 13th of December. Okay. All right, I wanted to see, Isabella, your question kind of popped out to me because you said silly question. There's never a silly question. That's one of the BA mantras, right? It's like the only silly question is the one you don't ask. How do you approach discovery sessions when you don't understand the business process, but don't want to lose credibility with the business by asking rudimentary dumb questions or continuing to ask because you still don't grasp what they're saying? So first of all, like, it is absolutely essential, right? Like, this is what we do. Like, you are not going to be the most knowledgeable on the business. The business is the most knowledgeable on the business. Now, a lot of BAs come from the business and then they kind of know the business and that's their touch point, right? But they're not necessarily as strong in the BA skills. So as you start to work in domains that you don't have the background in, your business analysis skill set is so important. So what you want to do is be the one who, especially with the business process, like I know how to create a process map. I know how to analyze the details of a business process. You are the expert in business analysis. You are an expert in business process mapping. And so approaching that is, walk me through your process. Let's model it together on the board. Let me draw what you're saying, right? And then it's not so much a dumb question, but like, there's a gap here, right? I'm not understanding how we get from here to here. And often business stakeholders sort of either jump into the weeds or they stay high level or they are like off on all these exceptions, right? And so it's confusing when you just allow them to kind of regurgitate everything that they think they know. But when you can break down what they're sharing with you into a structure, and that's why those analytical skills are so important, and start to map it through and say, like, that's an exception from here. We're going to talk about that later. Let's get this main flow, right? And now let's talk about all the things that can go wrong in this step and tell me all the things. Let's talk about all the things that can go wrong in this step. And you bring that structure to it. You don't look stupid because you're using a framework and you're bringing a lot of credibility to it. And you give them a way to kind of channel everything that they want to share with you. And if you don't grasp what they're saying, it's often because they're using terminology. That's where like having a glossary and really clarifying terms, or they're using terminology in confusing ways. And so like stopping and like, can we define what we mean by that term? Can we define what we mean by customer or account or whatever that acronym is, right? And often if you don't understand and you're a strong BA and a great listener, there's somebody else in the room who doesn't understand either. And when you are the one who pauses and slows things down and asks those questions and leads people through a structured process, everybody benefits and everybody learns something. So not a silly question. I'm so glad you asked that. Thank you. Okay. Cynthia asks, how would you go about gathering requirements for a lift and shift project when there's no prior documentation? So I'm not familiar with lift and shift specifically. So if you want to provide more context about that, but really the answer is probably going to be the same regardless. So you're really talking about the 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 legacy system. How do I figure out the requirements of a legacy system? And a few key techniques that I would start to use is one, sit down with a business user and ask them to walk you through how they use that system to do their job. First, what are the key processes that they do, or what are the key ways that they use it? And then have them walk you through it. And one of the techniques we teach in that discovery lesson is how to use observation to understand that process. And then as you're doing that, you're starting to build some understanding of from the business perspective. And then you want to sit with the software developers and do the same thing, right? What do they want to tell you about the system? How is the data organized? How is the software organized? And then there's likely going to be like a gap. Like you're going to start to see like from the bottom up how it works and from the top down how it works. And you're going to be like, well, who uses this feature over here? And who uses this over here? And how does this come into play? And then you can kind of start drilling deeper and meshing those together. But I would start with the business first because it's going to give you a bigger picture context. Okay. All right. And if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask a question, this would be a great time to do that as well. And then that says, this has been new role for me and my department. It's been interesting learning as we go. Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing. This is, Anena, I believe you have contacted us and we're like in the midst of getting your registration in. So I'm really excited for you and to have you join the program and glad you could be here today to be part of it, to learn a little bit more about what's coming. All right, Naveen, how do I find fresher jobs or 1 to 2 years of experience? Because normally they're mostly experienced jobs. So great career question. So Naveen, first of all, you want to make sure you understand all of your past transferable experience within business analysis. And I would also highly recommend picking up my book if you haven't already. And then on the website, there's also a workshop called the Quick Start to Success workshop that walks you through essentially how to quick start your success as a BA. But you want to be able to speak to your prior experience and you want to start building experience now in whatever role you're in business analysis. And the book really walks you through in depth how to do that. And then often you don't have to focus just on entry level jobs when you do that, because you can really meet the jobs that have a few years of experience. And then if you're truly right out of college, new to BA, look for entry level and junior level roles. And there's not typically a lot of them, but focus on those companies, focus on networking with people at those companies, and do whatever you can to get in with those companies that do have a progression path and are in a position to hire entry level BAs. All right, Cynthia, are all of the trainings online or is there any live instructor courses? So I do workshops on occasion. Most likely we will not be hosting another one this year, but we'll probably have one like February-ish of next year. And those are usually 3-hour workshops where we work through just one technique at a time. So this is the best way to get my kind of what we cover in the blueprint. If you're looking for a live course and you have a team, we could definitely talk about that for a team, but I don't offer any public live sessions other than what we do here. But I do want to emphasize we do have the monthly office hours calls, so there is that live component. We have blueprint members get access to any of those workshops that I would run during your investment period. So there's that as well. What is a business analyst? In Laura's 5 words, Wesley, an agent of change. Yeah, we create positive change for the organizations we serve. Office hours are as a group. Yeah, they're group office hours, but you do have the opportunity to submit questions in advance, as well as, it's actually great that they're in a group because often people come and don't think they have a question. And then in hearing a couple other questions, they come up with a question or they get something that they didn't know they needed from the answer to somebody else's question. So I really do love hosting them in a group format. I think it's ideal. All right. Feel free. Okay, Cynthia, thank you. Another great question. How long is the training? So you have access to all the materials for 6 months uh, as part of that initial investment. And then if you do want to have longer online access as well as be part of the community, there's a way to continue on your access after the fact. All right. Well, we are like right at the top of the hour. I appreciated the mix of questions about the program as well as your career challenges. I really would love to have you join. If there's anything that you didn't want to ask publicly today, feel free to reach out at info@bridgingthegap.com. That email address was in the chat earlier. And if there's like, is it right for me in this situation? I love to help people make great decisions about whether or not this is the right program for them and how to approach that. So feel free to submit those as well. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you inside the Business Analyst Blueprint program. Thank you, everyone.